Her eyes scan the stalls and faces around her, searching for Akinjide. She recalls his warm smile, his kind eyes, and the way he had treated her not as a maiden of wealth but as an equal. Yet, the marketplace is vast, and doubt begins to creep into her mind. What if he is not here today? What if she never sees him again? As she passes a stall selling carved wooden figures, an elderly vendor notices her distracted air. "You seem lost, my child," he says, his voice gentle. "Are you searching for something or someone?" Roanoke hesitates before nodding. "A friend," she replies, her voice low to disguise her refined accent. The vendor smiles knowingly. The market has a way of bringing people together. Have faith. Taking his words to heart, Roanoke presses on, pausing only when she reaches the area where she had first encountered Akinjide. The familiar layout of the blacksmith stalls and the rhythmic clang of hammers spark hope within her. Suddenly, she hears a familiar voice, a rich baritone cutting through the market noise. Turning quickly, she spots Akinjide at a blacksmith's forge, assisting an older man with a heavy blade. His face is streaked with soot, but his smile is as genuine as she remembers. Roanoke's breath catches in her throat. For a moment, she hesitates, unsure of how to approach him. But then, gathering her courage, she steps forward. "Akinjide," she calls softly, her voice trembling with both fear and excitement. He turns, his expression shifting from surprise to recognition, and finally, to joy. "Roanoke," he asks, stepping closer, "what are you doing here?" "I had to see you," she replies, her voice steady now. "I needed to know if the kindness I saw in you that day was real." Akinjide smiles, his eyes shining with sincerity. "It is real, Roanoke, and it is yours, if you wish it." In that moment, surrounded by the clamor of the market, Roanoke feels a sense of peace she has never known. She knows her journey is far from over, but for the first time, she believes she has found something worth fighting for. Roanoke and Akinjide step away from the noise of the bustling marketplace, seeking a quiet corner near the riverbank where they can talk without interruption. The tension that had gripped Roanoke during her journey begins to ease as Akinjide's warm demeanor reassures her. Yet a lingering fear remains. What will happen when her family learns of her defiance? "You risk much by coming here," Akinjide says gently, his eyes filled with concern. "Your family will not take kindly to this, especially if they discover you've come to see me." Roanoke sighs, her gaze dropping to the rippling water. "I know, Akinjide, but I couldn't ignore the way I felt after meeting you. Every suitor my father brings to the palace feels like another chain binding me to a life I do not want. You are different, honest, kind, and free of pretense." Akinjide smiles faintly but shakes his head. "Roanoke, I am just a blacksmith's apprentice. Your father would never approve of me, no matter my character." Her voice grows firm. "That is why I must make them see that love and honor are worth more than gold and titles. But I cannot do it alone. Will you stand by me?" Akinjide hesitates, his thoughts racing. The idea of standing against the most powerful family in the kingdom is daunting, but Roanoke's determination stirs something deep within him. "I will stand by you," he finally says, his voice steady. "But we must be cautious. If your father learns of this too soon, he could take measures to separate us before we've had a chance to fight for what we want." Roanoke nods, her resolve firm. "We will be cautious, but we will also be brave. I will not live a life dictated by fear." As they part ways for the day, Roanoke feels a mix of hope and trepidation. Akinjide has promised to help her, but she knows the road ahead will be fraught with challenges. Her family's wrath will not be easily quelled, and their love will be tested in ways neither of them can yet imagine. As the sun dips lower in the sky, a palace guard returns to Chief Olumide with troubling news. The guard, having extended the search to the bustling marketplace, speaks hesitantly, his eyes avoiding the chief's piercing gaze. "My lord, there is word that the young maiden was seen near the blacksmith stalls in the market," he reports. "She was speaking with a man." Chief Olumide's expression hardens, his fist clenching on the armrests of his ornate chair. "A man," he repeats, his voice dangerously low. "What kind of man?" The guard stammers. "A blacksmith's apprentice, my lord. He is known as Akinjide." The silence that follows is suffocating. Adunni, seated beside her husband, places a hand over her mouth, her face a mixture of shock and disbelief. Chief Olumide, however, is not merely shocked. He is enraged. A blacksmith's apprentice, he growls, rising to his feet. My daughter, the pride of this family, consorting with a common laborer. This is an insult beyond measure. Adunni attempts to calm him. Olumide, please, let us not act in haste. We do not yet know the full story. Perhaps. There is no perhaps, he snaps, cutting her off. This is a betrayal of everything we stand for. She has defied me, shamed our family, and now she associates with someone so far beneath her station that it is unthinkable. Olumide summons his senior guards. Find this Akinjide, he orders. Bring him to me at once. And as for Romoke, she will answer for this when she returns. Adunni watches her husband with growing unease. While she shares his disappointment, her heart aches for her daughter. Olumide, she says softly, do not let anger blind you. If you confront her with such fury, she may feel she has no home to return to. But Olumide is beyond reason. If she cannot respect this family, she is no daughter of mine. The guards leave immediately, their mission clear. As word spreads through the palace of Romoke's suspected liaison, whispers ripple among the servants and officials. The idea of the chief's daughter consorting with a blacksmith shocks everyone, fueling speculation about the consequences. In the quiet of her chambers, Adunni weeps silently, torn between her loyalty to her husband and her love for her daughter. She knows Romoke's spirit would not be easily broken, but she fears what might happen when the two strongest wills in her life inevitably clash. Romoke returns to her temporary shelter in a modest inn on the outskirts of the marketplace, her heart still warm from her conversation with Akinjide. The promise they made to one another has strengthened her resolve, but a gnawing sense of unease has begun to creep into her thoughts. She knows her father's temperament well. His pride is as unyielding as iron. If he learns of her whereabouts, his response will be swift and unforgiving. As she sits by the small wooden window, gazing at the dimming sky, Sade's words replay in her mind. You must be careful, my lady. Your father's wrath is not something to trifle with. At the time, Romoke had dismissed the warning, confident that her determination would carry her through. Now, the weight of her choices begins to settle heavily on her shoulders. The bustling noise of the market outside begins to wane as night approaches. Suddenly, Romoke notices a group of palace guards moving purposefully through the streets. She leans back into the shadows, her heartbeat quickening as the men question a vendor she recognizes from earlier. Though she cannot hear their words, the urgency in their movements is unmistakable. They are looking for me, she whispers to herself, the realization chilling her. Her instincts tell her to flee immediately, but she knows running without a plan will only lead to disaster. She retrieves a small pouch of coins she had brought with her and considers her options. The city is vast, and she could easily disappear into its quieter corners. But leaving means distancing herself from Akinjide and the fragile hope they've begun to build together. Romoke clenches the pouch tightly, determination rising within her. I will not let fear dictate my life, she murmurs. If they find me, I will face them with the truth. My heart belongs to Akinjide, and no amount of threats or traditions will change that. However, deep inside, she knows the road ahead will test her courage in ways she has never imagined. The god's presence is a stark reminder that her family will not relent easily. As the night deepens, Romoke begins making careful plans. She decides to leave the inn before sunrise, taking refuge in a more secluded part of the city where she can plan her next move with Akinjide. But for now, she steels herself for the danger that lies just beyond the walls of her small room, knowing that her choices are setting a course that could either free her or shatter everything she holds dear. The sound of hammers striking molten metal echoes through the blacksmith's quarters as Akinjide works diligently alongside his master. Sweat beads on his brow as he shapes a glowing blade, the rhythmic clang of his tools offering a comforting familiarity amidst the turmoil in his heart. Romoke's visit earlier in the day had filled him with hope, but it also left him uneasy. He knows her family will not let her defiance go unanswered. Unbeknownst to him, palace guards weave through the marketplace, their steps deliberate as they follow the trail of whispers about a blacksmith's apprentice who had been seen speaking with Romoke. The description matches Akinjide perfectly. Tall, with strong arms and a humble but proud demeanor. At a fruit vendor's stall near the smithy, the guards halt. We seek a man named Akinjide, their leader announces. He is a blacksmith's apprentice. Have you seen him? The vendor hesitates, her eyes darting toward the forge. He works over there, she says reluctantly, pointing to the far end of the market. The guards nod their thanks and proceed, their armor clinking with each step. The sight of the armed men draws attention, and soon a small crowd begins to gather, murmuring in hushed tones. Inside the forge, Akinjide is oblivious to the approaching threat until his master, a wizened man named Adiwale, glances toward the doorway. His face pales as he spots the guards. "Akinjide," he says urgently, placing a hand on the young man's shoulder. "Trouble is coming. Step outside, quickly." Akinjide looks up, confused. "What do you mean?" Before Adiwale can answer, the guards enter the forge, their expressions stern. "Are you Akinjide?" the leader demands, his voice carrying authority. Akinjide stands tall, wiping his hands on a rag. "I am," he replies, his tone even. "How may I help you?" "You are to come with us," the guard says, stepping forward. "Chief Olumide commands it." The blacksmith's apprentices and onlookers outside exchange worried glances. Akinjide frowns, his mind racing. What is this about? The guard offers no explanation. "You will learn soon enough. Do not resist, or you will make matters worse." Adiwale steps between Akinjide and the guards, his voice firm but respectful. He is an honest worker and has done nothing wrong. "What accusations do you bring against him?" The guard's eyes narrow. "This does not concern you, old man. Step aside." Akinjide places a reassuring hand on Adiwale's shoulder. "It's all right," he says quietly. "I will go with them." As the guards lead him away, the crowd watches in uneasy silence. Akinjide's heart pounds, but he keeps his head high. Though he does not know what awaits him at the palace, he is determined to face it with the same courage and integrity that Romok had shown in seeking him out. The grand hall of Chief Olumide's palace is cold and unwelcoming as Akinjide is brought before the chief and his council. The guards escort him with an iron grip, their faces impassive, while Akinjide, though inwardly uneasy, holds his head high. His heart pounds with the knowledge that he is walking into the lion's den, but he steels himself, determined to face whatever comes with dignity. Chief Olumide sits on an intricately carved throne, his gaze as sharp as a blade. To his left, Adoni watches with worry etched across her face, though she says nothing. The elders sit in a semicircle around the room, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and disapproval. "So," Olumide begins, his voice cold and deliberate, "this is the man who has dared to tarnish the honor of my household." Akinjide meets his gaze steadily. "I have done no such thing, my lord. I have acted with respect and honor in all my dealings." The chief leans forward, his expression darkening. "Do not play the fool with me. You have been seen with my daughter, speaking to her in the marketplace like some common suitor. Do you deny it?" "I do not," Akinjide replies evenly. "Romok approached me of her own will. We spoke, and I treated her with the respect she deserves." Olumide slams his palm against the armrest of his throne. "You dare to admit it?" "A blacksmith's apprentice, presuming to consort with my daughter, the pride of Ife? Do you know the insult you bring upon this family?" Akinjide straightens his shoulders. "With respect, my lord, love is not an insult. It is a bond that should transcend wealth and status. I care for Romok, not for what she represents, but for who she is." The room falls silent, the audacity of Akinjide's words hanging heavily in the air. Adoni's eyes widen slightly, and a murmur ripples through the gathered elders. Olumide's face hardens, his pride wounded. "You speak boldly for a man of such low station," he says, "but bold words will not save you. My daughter will marry a man worthy of her, a man who can bring honor and wealth to this family, not some impoverished tradesman with lofty ideals." Akinjide stands firm, refusing to cower. "I understand your concerns, my lord, but I believe that true worth lies in a man's character, not his wealth. If given the chance, I would prove myself worthy of Romok, not through riches, but through my actions." Olumide's lips curl into a bitter smile. "Prove yourself? You speak as though you have a choice in this matter." He waves a hand dismissively. "Guards, take him away. Let him reflect on the folly of his ambitions in the dungeons." As the guard sees him, Akinjide catches a glimpse of Adoni's conflicted face. Though she says nothing, her eyes convey a mixture of sorrow and helplessness. As he is dragged away, Akinjide silently vows to remain steadfast. If he must suffer for his love, so be it. But he will not allow fear or despair to break his spirit. The sun is high as Roma cautiously approaches the secluded part of the city where she had agreed to meet Akinjide. Her heart is light with anticipation, despite the lingering worry that her family's search might catch up with her. She clutches her shawl tightly, pulling it over her head to shield her identity. When she arrives at the blacksmith's quarters, the forge is unusually quiet. The sound of hammers and the smell of molten iron are absent, replaced by an uneasy stillness.